I am spinning all four and I am not going anywhere. So, what happens when you're out on a gorgeous day like today and you're wheeling and you may got a little too distracted with the scenery and realize that you went somewhere you didn't mean to go? Or maybe you're just trying to get past something that you have to get past. Whether it be snow, ice, mud, dirt, sand, grass, rocks, something is getting in the way of you moving forward. Now that may be some sort of life lesson buried in there, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. Yep, and I just popped that board out, so building up a good pile there. So sure enough, I'm stuck in this snow and ice. Now, I have my traction boards out, but those didn't seem to work. I have diff lockers on this Jeep, and those didn't seem to work. So what's next? Now, you may not know any of the words that I just said, but you just got a brand new winch, and you're thinking, okay, but how do I use it? Well, that's what we're gonna talk about today. Now, before we get too deep into things, I do want to make note of my banner here. This is a banner for Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery. And that is a 501(c) nonprofit organization that provides search and rescue as well as vehicle recovery services to the backcountry of Colorado here, free of charge. Now, I have been volunteering with them. We are all volunteers, but I have been volunteering with them for over 3 years now, and I fully support them. But I do have to make note, the opinions of Colorado 4x4 Rescue and Recovery are not reflected in this channel and in my videos. What you see is my opinion and the safest way that I believe to do things, but it is entirely my opinion and is not reflected by the organization. Well, we've established that I am plenty stuck here. I actually see my front differential resting on some snow. This is a little bit more stuck than I was anticipating, but that just means more fun getting out. Now, maybe you just bought your first off-roader and you heard that you have to have a winch on it to go anywhere. Or maybe you bought something used and it already has a winch on it, but you don't know how to use it. Now, every winch is going to be different in some of the specifics, like the controls and some of the mechanism, but generally speaking, they all kind of follow the same principles. Now, take my little cover off here. I have this because, as you can see, my winch is out in the open on top of my bumper here, and my rope is exposed. And if I'm driving down the highway and there's any debris or wet weather, like snow and ice, you know, that could cake up here, and especially with snow and ice, that could freeze my rope here and essentially make my winch not operable, which we don't want, and I've seen it happen. Now you can see here, my winch is a Super Winch EPI 9.0 here, and this winch itself is actually a little bit on the older side. It's been on the vehicle since close to the time it was new, and this is a 2004 Jeep, but it is still in great working order, and I have never had any issues with it. Over here you can see the engagement lever. This little diagram helps you see which position is which. So this is engaged. Disengaged. Now I can pull on it. And you see that starts to roll out. Now that's how you're going to want to free spool anything, especially when you're pulling this out to then rig up later. Rigging up to something is actually a great place to start, because before we really do anything, we need to look for a viable candidate to anchor the end of my winch line to. Now normally that would be something like a very sturdy tree, potentially a very large rock with protection being used on, if it's on nylon rope, but something that is not or is much less likely to move than your vehicle. So I'm thinking with where I'm at, generally speaking, straight from me is, well, this cluster of trees here. So I'm gonna go walk over there and see if I can find a good candidate to anchor to. So I've made it to the cluster of trees. Now time to find one that works. So you can see, Jeep's way down there. But I do believe we have a couple of good tree candidates over here. These are some decently large ones, and they are not aspens. Generally speaking, especially out here in Colorado, I avoid aspen trees. Granted, this one's small, but as they are very weak, and even the large ones can be taken down by just our simple winch here. So I want to see what's going to give us the best angle. As you can see, Jeep straight through there. Well, I think that's going to look like this tree right here. Decently large around, especially in the direction that we'll be pulling. It's actually kind of two trees, but I see this as a very viable candidate for our pull here. And as you can see, here's the base of the tree, and there's my Jeep. Now we'll just need to make sure we're not cutting too much into any brush here, but I don't anticipate too much of a problem considering I can clearly see the front of my Jeep. So what we need to do now is go back to the Jeep and grab whatever I need to actually hook the end of my winch hook to this tree, because obviously I can't just hang it on something. That's not really gonna work. So let's go down there and see. Okay, so as you can see here, here's the end of my winch hook. This is a closed loop. This is not sponsored by any company here. I purchased everything with my own money, but I will say I personally like to use a closed loop like this. I do not like to use hooks with, even if it has a little latch clasp, as those latch clasps are very weak, and if loaded wrong can be pulled out, and well, that would lead to a disconnection. Now I have this solid piece here, but also what I've ran in the past is, as you see the end of my loop here, I have it wrapped in electrical tape just to protect the rope. But for a while before I had this link at the front, this was the end of my rope, and it was just closed loop in the rope, and that is perfectly fine for me to use. So we need to get something, well, a few things that are going to connect this to that tree. Now, I've already done a little bit of prep work just by moving what I'm going to need to the front, but I'm going to start with my handy dandy tree saver. As I use my equipment for search and rescue, I like to have the highest quality equipment that I can, and I always look for, doesn't matter the brand, but always look for ratings that they have on here. As you can see, this one even has it in a vertical, in a choker, and in a basket. That'll be to start with, but I'm going to need to connect these closed loops to that closed loop somehow. So that's where a shackle will come in. Hard or soft shackle, I use both. It depends on the application, but once again, I always make sure that I use properly tagged and properly rated products. Also, these particular soft shackles have these green areas on either end, and that's how to know once it's all rigged up. If the load is in those green sections, that's how you know you rigged this up right. So there's that. And because I know that that is going to be a significant distance, I know that I don't have enough rope on my winch. I also have a winch extension here. Now, I don't know the exact length of this, but it's somewhere in the ballpark of 75 feet. This is 5/8 inch Dyneema rope. Once again, high quality. Now, with all of this, we can at least get a line started from the tree, and we'll see what else we need to connect it back to the Jeep. So I have my tree strap wrapped around my tree here, all the way around, as low as I can get it, so that we're not putting any unnecessary bending into the tree. Onto my soft shackle and rope connection here. I like to nest my ends of my strap here to make sure that both are engaged and we're not overloading one end. And here, my soft shackle, I always follow the rule of knot, noose, load. Here's your knot, here's the actual noose that wraps the knot, and then your load is going to be beneath that. I follow that rule, as that is what I know to be the safest way to rig these up. But like I said about the green sections earlier, as this starts to pull, that's gonna pull on the green section there, that's gonna pull on the green section there, and that's how we know that is rigged up properly. Now, I need to take the rest of this rope down to the Jeep and see how far I get. So, with that rope out, I have made it to this point. And I am, I'd say, not quite halfway to my Jeep. So, what I'm gonna do now is, I do have more rope and more straps that can be used, but I'm going to pull off all the rope off my winch first to see how far that gets so that I can judge how much to fill that middle space that I'm going to need. So here I am, back at the winch. I'm still disengaged from earlier, and now I need to start pulling some rope out. Now, different winches are gonna have different kind of tensions almost on the gear set there. Some are gonna be easier, some are gonna be harder, and it doesn't necessarily mean that something is wrong. But if it is too hard or near impossible, that's when something might need to be checked. If there's line that's wrapped on each other or jammed, or there is an issue with the gear train, or it's not disengaged. I've been there before. So, and you'll notice that I'm wearing some gloves here. This is to help, one, get a better grip on the rope as I pull it out, and two, in case there's anything in the rope, it doesn't get on or in my hands, and that'll be more important later when we're cleaning everything back up. But for now, just pull some rope out. This is why I don't go to the gym. And just like that, my rope is out. And really, I just skipped all that to save the embarrassment of my friends and family having to watch me struggle with that. But I have wrapped the drum itself in yellow and red electrical tape, and that's solely just for a identifier for me, that when I start to see that, that's how I know that I'm at my drum. Now, I follow the rule of minimum 12 wraps on the drum, and one wrap is just one loop around. When winching, ideally you want as much rope out as possible, as that will allow the winch to use its full strength. If the rope bundle is spooled up higher, the radius of where it's pulling from increases and decreases the overall force that the winch is pulling with. Now that's just going back to some physics. So I know I have at least 12 wraps on here, and I'm not too concerned about getting quite down to exactly 12, because I know I have the extensions to cover this. This is safe enough for me. Now I am to engage the lever here, and the lever itself is sticking up just slightly. Show that up close. As you can see, there's a little bit of space right in there. And this just means it's not fully engaged. And the way that I make sure that this is fully engaged once I've spooled out like this is I take my rope and I tug on it. Now that is engaged. So now that I know that this rope is engaged, I'm gonna take the other end of this and see how far I can get. And then I can make an assessment of how much rope I'm gonna need between the two. So I'm gonna head out there and I'll show you where it makes it to. So as you can see, I'm holding onto the end here, all the way from the Jeep. And it might be hard to tell, but the end of the rope is right in that little bit of snow there. So I'd say about 30 feet. So here I am, back at the Jeep, back at the back of the Jeep.
Hey, Grant here from HR. After doing a bit of internal auditing, we've decided that our cameraman Grant sucks. As our host Grant actually does have the rest of his head, but you wouldn't know it from this clip. So, Cameraman Grant has been fired, and we are now looking to replace him and fill that role. The position is not compensated with money, but rather you'd be paid in Red Bulls, B-tier dad jokes, and quote-unquote experience. If you're interested, please reach out. Please. Before Cameraman Grant comes back and wrecks the place.
The sun is starting to come and go on me behind the clouds, and the sun's starting to go down, and it's getting a little cooler, so I figured I'd stay warm, and I urge everybody else, especially in colder climates like this, to stay warm. But I do have another winch extension here. This one's about 30 feet. I'm hoping that this will bridge the gap, but I'm not certain it will. If it doesn't, I have another backup for that, but I'm just gonna try this first. But I am gonna need 2 more connections on that. Let's see. So, for this one, I'm doing 1 hard and 1 soft. Now, theoretically, I could get away with 2 soft here, but this is just a little bit of a backup plan in case this doesn't quite reach. And the reason for that is I don't like to put synthetic on synthetic in a case where they could rub. So if it's just the 2 eyelets of this rope, I am okay with that. But as I feel, if this is not long enough, I have another strap that I'm going to put into play here. And when I do that, I anticipate that I will be doubling this rope back. And on the end that is not the 2 loops, I'm gonna want a hard shackle there. And just so that any sort of rubbing back and forth doesn't cause any excess heat that could damage both the shackle and the rope. So maybe we don't even need it, but it'll be easier for me later. Well, that was a little too close for comfort, but we're using my full extension and my additional strap that I added. Both straight. I misjudged my distance there a little bit, but I'm fully connected from the tree way over there, that one, all the way back to the Jeep in one solid line. So what I like to do now is I go through and check all of my connections to make sure that they're done correctly and that they're sitting the way that I want them to. So we can start with this one. This is just coming off of my winch, obviously, and this is a standard bow pin shackle here. This one has a working load limit, which is something I always look for. Make sure it's a reputable piece of equipment, but that is secure. Follow my line up. Other end, this extension, once again, another bow pin shackle here. Oriented the same way, nothing special there. Another strap to another soft shackle here, which once again, just like the one up at the tree, is following the way it should. And this was the first connection we did. We checked it, but always good to double check. So it's still sitting the way that I want it to. It's engaging low on the tree. And with that, I think we're almost ready to pull. So now that my rope has tension on it, going to double check my connections here. They're still sitting the way they should. Looks good. Still sitting the way it should. Looks good. Now this one has flipped, which is not ideal, but with a soft shackle like this, this is not normally a concern. Just when it's up, it makes it easier to disassemble, but this is still correct. Okay, so here's our last connection. That looks good. It's sitting the way that I want it to. Still nested on the strap side. We're still in the end areas that it needs to be in. So that looks good. The strap itself looks low on the tree, and I'm gonna walk around the other side and just to make sure. And normally I could just walk around it, but that would be too easy and it would deny a teaching moment. So let's all learn. So if you need to cross a taut rope such as this one, this is what I do. Again, please do your research, but I step on the rope as I cross it. And that may seem weird, stepping on a tight rope. Your gut instinct may be to straddle it, but I don't have that much tension on this rope currently, and these ropes can take a lot more tension. And if you were to straddle this trying to cross it, and it were to snap, it will most likely hit you somewhere on your inner upper legs, and a injury like that could be fatal, and it has happened before. So just do that. It's a lot easier. All right, so now that we are hooked all the way up to the Jeep and I am satisfied with how that strap is and I'm satisfied with the rest of the connections, I think we're just about ready to winch. Not an awful time to do so, late in the afternoon here in the Rocky Mountains. But I gotta make it up this hill first if I want to see it. Well, back to the Jeep. So here I am back in the Jeep. We are idling higher, about 1500, 1600 RPM. And when I go to pull, since I'm pulling myself, I'm going to be in first gear for low. Diffs are still locked, and I'm gonna be slowly churning my tires to break any friction that they may have so that the winch doesn't have to do as much work, and then hopefully I can climb onto my traction boards. If I was pulling somebody else out, normally I would be in neutral, parking brake, and foot hard on the brake, as we don't want to pull against the gear train, we want to pull against the brakes. But I want to get out of here, so I am not going to do that. But I'm going to put you outside so that you can watch. I could not see a thing coming up that hill, but I'm out. So what's next? Just keep going? Almost. I gotta clean up the rest of my gear. Now, if your mom ever told you how to clean up your toys, I don't think you need to learn how to clean up your stuff. So I'm just gonna do that, and then we'll meet back here, and then I'll show you how to spool that winch back. So I'm packed up, and I'm just about ready to go, which is good because the sun is starting to go down. But there's one last thing that I have to do, and that is re-spool my winch line to make sure that my rope stays protected on that drum. Now when I do this, I usually stand about here. And this is so that I can get a good visual on my winch drum to make sure that my rope is laying the way that it should. So, notice I'm going hand over hand when letting the rope go in. I don't want to hold on to this and walk, as that creates a fall hazard, a trip hazard. And we get back to the gloves. Now I wear non-Velcro leather gloves. And I do that, one, to protect my hand if anything gets on or in the rope, and two, if for some reason the rope grabs onto my glove or my glove gets caught up in my fair lead here, it slips right off and doesn't take my hand with it. So, with that, my little weather protector. Unplug my controller. And I'm good to go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't be alarmed. I had to do just a little bit of time traveling, but I wanted to take a quick sec to talk about some of the gear that I use. Now, I am going to be linking some of this in the description, but as I have well into the 3 figures worth of gear just right here, I don't expect everybody to be able to go out and buy that. So, I do want to talk about what I look for when buying new gear. A really good place to start is the crane rigging industry, as there is actually a lot of overlap with what we have here, such as I have a couple of bow pin shackles here. Now these are made by companies called CM and Crosby. These are very popular companies in the crane rigging industry, and these have everything on them that I need to be able to trust them. They have working load limits, they have sizes, they have country of origins, and all that type of stuff. And if you still don't trust that, you can go directly to these manufacturers and get testing data for these shackles, as well as the rest of the products that they sell, to be able to have confidence that this stuff is going to work. What I avoid, and the only reason I have this shackle is for this demonstration, is I have no country of origin, no manufacturer, nothing besides a working load limit. And frankly, anybody can go and just put that on a piece of gear and say it's good to go. Really what I've noticed is that if companies are too afraid to put their own name on a piece of equipment, that's generally not a piece of equipment that I trust. Same goes with my tree saver here. It's by a company called ASR. And I have all of this data here that gives me the working load limits, the serial numbers, and basically everything that I need to be able to go back to the company and get data from them so that I can trust this. Same goes with my soft shackle by Safe Extract. All of the data is right there. Now, not everything you are going to be able to go out and buy off the shelf, like my rope here that we used. This was actually custom made for me. I had this ordered, but this was supplied to me by a crane rigging supply company. And this is some 5/8 inch Dyneema rope, which is a certain type of rope. And I had this cut to a specific length that I needed. But getting it through that reliable source is what allows me to be able to trust this. So, some of this is going to be pretty expensive right here, but I strongly urge anybody to, when you go out and buy gear, make sure you look for some of the signs and what you can go back to the manufacturing company and actually get data on. Not this. This is bad. So, back to Grant up on the mountain. Well, I got myself into a bit of a predicament today, but I was able to get myself out of it. And hopefully any knowledge that I shared could potentially help somebody in the future, as really that's what it's all about. You know, I was a newbie to this once, and I leaned heavily on those around me who had more experience to teach me and show me and help me and also have fun with me. So, I am grateful for the experience that I have in being able to deal with situations like that, and really just in general of how to enjoy this hobby responsibly and not destroy it for everybody else. So if you like that and you want to see more of stuff like that, let me know, and let me know what you want to see. But in the meantime, I'm going to go enjoy the rest of this Colorado sunset. So remember, wheel responsibly. I can't thank y'all enough for watching. I plan to create more automotive content, including tips, tricks, and other how-tos, and I would really love to see this grow to cover a wide range of cars and motorsports. Please feel free to leave a comment on what sorts of things you would like to see so that I can work on bringing y'all what you want. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade with a lifelong obsession with all things cars, and I would really love to put as much helpful information from my experience out into the world as I can. Until next time, stay safe and wheel responsibly.